All right, and we are live. Welcome back to another episode of the Peak Performance Project. I'm your host, Tommy Clark. As you guys come on Facebook, on YouTube, definitely be sure to share the URL, whatever platform you're on. You can post on Twitter, Facebook, wherever. Share it so we can get some more people in here. But I'm super excited for today's episode. I have my guy Lucas Shapiro here with me. Lucas, what's going on?
How you doing, Tommy?
Good, good. How about yourself?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Wish I had shot a little bit better from the line today, but can't complain.
It happens. It happens. But yeah, we'll definitely dive into what you're doing with the free throw shooting this offseason, kind of how that came about. But before we get into that, just give everyone listening in or watching right now kind of an idea, like a background of who you are, what you do, how you got into the coaching world, and ultimately what you do now.
Yep. So I am going into my fifth year with DePaul University men's basketball. I've been kind of working in this basketball world. I want to say since
Yeah.
like my freshman year of high school.
Really? Okay.
It's kind of a funny story actually. So
Yeah.
my freshman year of high school, I had gotten an F on a progress report card,
Yeah.
and I remember like that same day when I got that, my dad came home and I was playing video games. I was really into
Hmm.
video games at the time, and
Got you.
he pulled my Xbox out of the wall and smashed it with a sledgehammer.
No way.
And yeah, so I was, obviously at the time I was devastated, but what I was
Yeah.
really more messed up about was that I just didn't know how to spend that extra time that I had been playing video games. So I had
Yeah.
gotten into writing about basketball. I started a little blog where I was talking about the NBA, and one thing
Okay.
led to another. I started writing for various publications, thinking I'm going to become like some sort of sports journalist. Went
Hmm.
went to college, went to University of Missouri, thought that I was going to do that route, but then once I got there, I started working for the men's basketball team there as a student manager, and I
Yeah.
loved it. And ever since then, I've just been like super into coaching, and that's kind of the route that I want to go because I found
Got
that the writing, it was cool and it was fun. I wanted to help people directly,
yeah.
and I felt like that was a little more rewarding of a job.
Got you, got you. So did you play in high school, or did you just go straight into the journalism and then coaching?
Yeah, yeah. And I played in high school. I
Okay,
played my
got
whole
you.
life. I
Yeah,
loved playing basketball. I wasn't particularly good, but I was good enough by the end
for
of
sure.
senior year to make it to varsity.
Hmm.
And yeah, no, I mean, I just couldn't. After high school, I just couldn't not be around the game anymore, and I wasn't good enough to play in college. So
Hmm.
I just wanted to stay around it as long as I possibly could. And it's crazy to think like that I do this as like a full-time job now.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's awesome. I think that's a lot of it's a thing a lot of players don't realize, that they think when they're done playing, like that's when basketball finishes. Like for me, I played D3 for the first year and a half before I stopped, but like I didn't when I was going into college, I was like, I'm going to play all 4 years. Like, this is like, I just want to play basketball for as long as I can. But then I got into the nutrition side of things and quickly realized like, this is a different way that I could impact the game quite a bit while not actually playing. So it's super interesting. And I think it's something a lot of players will benefit from realizing early on, that like, it's okay if you don't make it to the NBA. It's okay if you don't even play in college. So, I mean, if you don't even play in high school, like, you can still technically make it to the NBA or make it to college basketball, even if you're not playing. So I think it's super important for people to hear those types of stories. So that's awesome. How did you get into the current role that you're in now, in terms of your progression into the coaching world?
Right. So I was extremely lucky. So in my first 2 years at the University of Missouri, our current head coach at DePaul, Dave Lato, he was
Hmm.
an assistant coach at Missouri. So after my junior year, or I want to say, yeah, during my junior year, he became the head coach. Or no, I'm sorry, during my senior year, he
Okay,
became the head coach at DePaul. And
got it.
I kept in contact with him over the years, and Luckily, when I graduated, he had a graduate assistant position open, and
Mhm.
so I was all over it. Like
Yeah.
I was sending him stuff left and right, and
Yeah.
next thing you know, I was working for him again, and it's just gone from there. I was a graduate assistant for 2 years and got my master's and was working with the team, and then Coach Leto bumped me up to video coordinator, and I've been in this position the last 2 years.
Got you. So for anyone that doesn't know, like, can you walk us through like what are the responsibilities of the video coordinator in terms of being a video coordinator for a Division I team? Like, what do you do on a day-to-day basis for the team
Right.
in a traditional sense, but also now that COVID is kind of struck, like how has that forced you guys to adapt in terms of like what the day-to-day responsibilities look like?
For sure. I think that to describe it in regular times, video coordinator is somebody who is all about scouting. So whether that's
Yeah.
opponent scouting, whether that's scouting your own team, you're trying to put together over 100 film sessions over the course of the year. If you think about it, pretty much every practice that we have, we start
Oh yeah.
off with a film session. So whether that's something reviewing practice film, whether that's reviewing our last game, whether that's reviewing future opponent film, that's during the season. It's an intensive job where you're not sleeping a lot. You're watching
For
shoot
sure.
tons, hours and hours and hours of
Yeah.
film, and it's super intense during the season. But I
Yeah.
also think, ever since COVID has hit, my job is that intensity has remained, because
Mhm.
now more than ever, my job is important because we're trying to recruit, and we
Yeah.
need to be able to show people how we play,
Yeah.
what kind of what have we done in player development? How have guys gotten better? Be specific, giving,
Yeah.
doing research on stats, you name it. It's a never ending process. And, I don't know how it works for video coordinators at other schools. I'm also the director of our social media. So I manage
Okay.
our
That's cool.
Instagram,
Yeah.
Twitter accounts. And so I'm very well versed in kind of the digital media aspect of the job too, in terms of whether that's
Yeah.
making graphics, whether that's making videos, whether that's making highlight tapes, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's one of those jobs, like, people probably think like it's really only in season that you're working, but like, no, trust me, there's always something that can be
I can
done. There's
imagine.
always something that can be
Yeah.
done.
How
So
how does what you do like with the graphics and the social media stuff, like does that play a pretty that plays a pretty big role in recruiting, right? Like I didn't really realize like how much that sort of stuff like kind of I was watching, I forget what podcast or something or video I was watching, like photoshopping players' faces onto like the school's uniform, like making it look like that. So
yep.
it's like they can visualize themselves in your uniform and kind of maybe increase your chances, the highlight reels, like the film reels, stuff like that. How big of a role does that play in like the recruiting process?
It's huge. It's huge. I think that that's kind of one of those things, you're never going to get a recruit because, oh, I just got
Yeah,
this great graphic, but it's just like some icing on the cake.
for
It's
sure.
just something that people are like, oh, wow, it's all in the process of showing love. So
Yeah,
that's what these guys want to see. And you got to keep up, because that's what everybody's doing right now, is they're
yeah,
making all sorts of extravagant photoshops. And yeah, that's something that I do, and that's something that we do, and we try to send out to as many guys as we can. Then I think
yeah,
it's something that also you can not just always personalize them, but kind of show what are your selling points at your school. So why would you want to come to DePaul? You can see our player development's been great over the years. You can
yeah,
see we've put guys in the league. There's just a lot of different things that I'm constantly thinking, okay, what's next? What's next?
mhm,
What can we hit these guys with? What can we hit this guy with? It's just constant. And I, in my position, I'm not allowed to recruit, but I
yeah,
definitely feel like I play a big hand in the process, because I'm helping our assistants think of ideas for presentations or film sessions, or
yeah,
you name it, mail outs. It's just it's one of those things. It's an everyday job, recruiting.
yeah.
and
Yeah. Has
everybody's got to
that
play a role in it.
for sure? Has that component of it, like the graphics and the highlight reels and the stuff that you do, has that kind of taken on a more important role now that players can't really visit campus? I'm not sure if they can or not, but for a lot of schools, like they can't actually come to
Yeah,
campus or like actually
no,
get
they can't visit right
in.
now. It's
Yeah. Has
definitely it's
that
definitely definitely taking on a bigger role because I
okay?
mean,
Yeah.
how are you going to be able to see the campus? Like I've literally been going
Yeah.
around and filming a campus tour and stuff like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you got to get creative. You got to be able to make something look sexy. Like it's just what
For
it
sure.
is. Like
Filming in
you,
the library and all that, just
yeah,
making it look
like
hype.
your school can
Yeah.
look really good in person, but you got to be able, if people can't come, you got to be able to make it look cool without
Yeah.
them being able there and show them exactly like
Yeah.
what it's like.
Yeah.
It's been a challenge, but it's been something I think we've done a pretty good job of.
Awesome. What would you say is like the most like creative kind of out of the box thing that you guys have done in terms of that recruiting process? Is there anything that sticks out in your mind?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, we definitely we'll get creative with some. I mean, we'll do stuff like because and this is a real thing. Like our guys at DePaul get put on billboards in Chicago
Yeah.
in real life, and so
Mhm.
we'll have like a recruit on like the billboard where somewhere
Mm.
like some of ours have been to show them, hey, like there's a
Yeah.
million people that go by this billboard. Like think about the
Yeah.
idea of
That's
you
cool.
being passed by a million people, stuff like that.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. And they
It's
kind of
about
go,
who knows you.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, it's definitely super interesting. I think with any profession, with any craft, there's a lot of things that people don't realize that go into it, like behind the scenes that, you see the graphics people post and stuff like that, but you don't really realize like the intention behind it. So I think it's really interesting and really cool to dive into that. Now, kind of getting back to the video coordinator side of things and in the scouting, has there been a situation where like it's one of those where the guy hasn't made a three all season, like his maybe 3% is super low, or like a certain characteristic that just you don't see coming, and then that's just the one game that he goes off? Like has that happened to you at any point?
Yes, definitely. That's definitely happened. I'm trying to remember. I believe there was our Seton Hall game at home. I remember,
Hmm.
and the guy who was making threes, not like he's capable of hitting a three, but
Yeah. Yeah.
a guy by the name of Jared Roden, he really was stroking it against us. And I just remember like
Yeah.
those are the games where you're on the bench, just throwing your hands up and like. Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely times where, and I remember Coach Leto was saying it during the year, like we do a really good job of taking away a team's strength. However, there's a lot of times when it's the other guy that hurts us. So, okay,
Yeah.
like you may take away a team's strength, but if the other guy's hurting you, okay, now what do you do then? What do you do in that? What adjustments do you make in that situation, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, scouting is it's an art form for sure. It's one of those things like you can scout a team as much as you want, but you really don't know what you're getting game to game.
Yeah.
It's a game of averages.
For sure. Is there anything in your guys' approach to scouting or what you guys put on the scouting reports that you think is relatively unique to you guys? Or how do you guys usually go about like putting together a scouting report for you guys?
The one thing I think we do a good job of is I think that our message to the guys, we make it really clear what a team is trying to do. What is a team ultimately
Hmm.
trying to accomplish in that game, so that
Yeah.
we're trying to take away that strength, right? So, for example, if it's we're going up against Providence, we know every year Providence is a very
Yeah.
physical team. So we're talking about that. We're really emphasizing their physicality throughout the 3 days before, or 3 or 2 days before the scouting report, and just driving home that one point. I think, because with scouting, you can get super detailed, right? Like you
Yeah.
can go through all their plays. You can talk about, okay, how many times does this guy go left? How many times does this guy go right? But at the end of the day, the players can only process so much, right? And you don't
Mhm.
want them thinking out there. You want them operating off of
Oh, for
instinct,
sure.
right? So I think
Yeah.
we do a good job of deciding what is it we want to do and keeping it simple and making sure our guys aren't thinking about too much out there. I think we do a really good job of that. There's a lot of teams that I'm impressed with. Like I'm like, oh my god, they know every single play we're running. Like we'll call out a play and they know every single one. I don't.
Yeah.
We're not like really like that. I mean, we know
Yeah.
we go over sets. We go over our sets with the guys, and we ourselves as the coaching staff know the sets. But
Yeah.
we're not that. That's not how we roll. We're more. We're trying to take your biggest strength away.
Got you. Yeah, I can imagine. Like you call it a play, they start calling out something else on the other side every single time. Like I can
Right.
imagine that could be a little frustrating. But that's
No doubt.
interesting. Are there any like key metrics that you guys focus in on, like in order to keep it simple, but also kind of get the point across you need to get across to your guys? Like what are some key metrics that you're looking at as far as like identifying key threats in the other team?
I mean, I think one of the biggest ones is for us is pace of play. So
Okay.
I think that if a team is playing fast, and we play fast this year, we were actually probably one of the fastest teams in the country. So
Hmm.
if we're going up against, say, like Villanova, who's really trying to limit the possessions in the game, we got to talk about, okay, what are we going to do so that we who want to play fast are getting more possessions, right? And so I think that's one that we really hone in on, and so that guys know what type of game we're going into, and how the other team wants the speed of the game, and
Yeah.
just thinking about possessions, because we want to try to get as many as we possibly can get.
Okay. Got you. Got you. And then I can imagine you've watched a lot of film over the years, and over that time, I can imagine you've also kind of picked up some skills as far as watching film a bit more effectively and kind of getting the most out of the film that you're watching. And I know it's a really common question whenever I do Q&As, especially with coaches, especially at the college level. Guys always ask, like, how do I get into watching film? Like, I want to watch film, but like, I don't really know what to look for. Like, I don't even know
Mhm.
really how to get started. Um, how do you recommend going about watching film in a pretty effective way? We'll start with, let's just say a player is watching like another player that they're trying to kind of learn something from. Like, how would you go about that in a way that's effective, where you're not kind of overthinking it, but you're still kind of getting what you need to get out of that film session?
Right. So I think the most important thing with film is, like, you just got to understand, especially if you're a player that's trying to emulate another player, right? What is that player's job? Oh, you got to
Mm,
evaluate what is it that they're being asked to do? What is it that they are trying to accomplish in the game? So, for example, like if you're a point guard and you're watching, say, a I don't know, maybe like a Trey Young. You're trying to see,
yeah.
okay, what is it that he's trying to do? Is he a guy that's trying to get into the paint every time? Is he a guy that is looking for the pass first when he's coming off of a ball screen? You I think the most important thing is just really just honing in on one thing when you're watching film at first. If you want to kind of build it up, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's the most important part. So, like, if it's like, for example, yeah, just watch one player and just keep your eyes on that one player the whole game. What he's doing on defense, what he's doing on offense. Or if you're trying to look at it from a team perspective, maybe just look at one side of the ball. Okay, what is a team's ball screen coverage on defense looking like? Do they stick with that same ball screen coverage the whole game? Are they
Yeah.
doing that same ball screen coverage out of timeouts? And there's a lot of different things that you can pick up. What looking at maybe what is their help side defense like? Are they sitting in the paint on the help side? Are they more hugged up to their defenders? There's just a million different ways with film that you can watch and learn. And I just think the best thing you can do, though, is focus on one thing. Focus on one thing at a time, and
Yeah.
slowly over time, your ability to notice multiple things going on at once will get better.
Hmm. Got you. Are there any really common mistakes you see guys make when they're watching film?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most common one is just watching the ball. I mean, there's just so much that goes on off the
For
ball
sure.
that you need
Yeah.
to be paying attention to. I think watching just the ball, you miss a lot. Okay, so you're
Yeah.
not seeing what type of off-ball actions there are. Say, like there's a off-ball stagger screen. Like you might not see that happen. You might not see how a guy's coming off that screen or how another team's defending it. You, so the best thing you can do is actually watch everybody but who has the ball. To be honest, that's to me, I think is where a lot of, and it's easy because like any normal person, you're at a bar, right? You're gonna watch the person who has the ball because you want to see if they score, and that's a
Yeah.
natural tendency. But like from if you're a player or a coach, like you need to be seeing everything else that's going on too. Obviously we naturally just watch what's on the ball, but you got to be able to see and understand why everything else is happening too.
Got you. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And then looking at a situation where maybe a player is watching film on themselves, so watching a past game, or you guys do practice film as well, maybe college pro level. Um, how would you recommend a player goes about that effectively so they actually kind of are able to learn something? Is it similar? Are there any differences or anything else that you would point out in terms of watching film on yourself to get the most out of that?
Yeah, I think there's two things. I think one, when you're watching film of yourself, you're going to find that you, what you did in the game and what you see on film are very different. They're very different. Like it's
Interesting.
amazing how like you can feel like you're doing something, but when you watch yourself doing something, it can be completely different.
Yeah,
So you have to do it. That's for me. Like a lot of players, I don't think they're really watching themselves. Like maybe they'll watch their shots, but like they really just need to watch their minutes and the whole entirety of the game.
yeah,
Two, I think that it's good to watch it with somebody who is just a truth teller. Somebody you know is going to keep it real with you, whether that's a
yeah,
coach or somebody in your circle. Like you need people that are going to be honest with you and be willing to give you constructive criticism because let's face it, it's impossible to play a perfect game, right? There's always going to be something that you can do better. But,
yeah,
sometimes we have egos and don't want to embrace
for
the
sure.
truth and it's hard. Sometimes you only want to see your makes and that's
Oh yeah,
obvious because and sometimes that's necessary too in film. When guys are going through shooting slumps, sometimes we'll show them a game where they went off and that'll build you back up. But at some
for
point you
sure.
got to return. You got to know what's really going on. You got to know the truth, and you got to sometimes for if you're lacking in the self awareness department, you might need somebody that can give it to you straight and tell you, hey man, like you're not running up the court hard enough. Like you need to like look at this guy on look at Mitchell Robinson on the New York Knicks. Watch him run the floor. He's one of the
Yeah,
most amazing rim runners in the NBA. Like, hey, maybe next time down you need to run like Mitchell Robinson runs. So, stuff like that. Just
yeah.
you got to be able to find the truth in the film.
Yeah, no, that I think that's super important. Like I know when I was playing, or I think every player can relate to this, but you're always waiting for like the basket you made, or the move you had, or the great defensive possession you had, and like you want to like skip over like that mistake. You're dreading the whole entire film session. You know it's going to come up at some point. And you're just like, oh, I don't want to watch that, but it's not like most of the time. That's probably the most important part. So 100% agree with you there. And in terms of looking at film in your experience watching a lot of it, are there any common themes or common mistakes, especially with like younger guys that are making the transition from the high school to college level, that pop up pretty often?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one is just turning the ball over for young
Yeah,
players. A lot of young players see a lot of like high risk moves that guys do in the NBA, but I don't know if they realize, right? NBA players make a lot of those moves because they're able to read the defense, right?
yeah,
It's none of their moves are premeditated. They are actively able to see the floor and then be able to read the defense. So if there's somebody coming up to take a charge, like yeah, you're going to Euro step. But if you just come in the lane and Euro step for no reason, which you see a lot of young players do, they get put in a position where they're in the middle of the air and they got to kind of throw the ball somewhere, and a lot of times it doesn't end up being a good result. So I think that having the ability to read the defense first and know why you're doing this or why you're doing that, I think that for young players, that's one of the most valuable skills you can have, because one of the things about freshmen, especially in college, is they have a tendency to be a little turnover prone. But if as a young player you can understand why I'm doing this move or what situation I'm doing this move and not be premeditated with your moves, that's the best way to go about it.
Got you. And then looking at the next level, so guys maybe in the program or just in college basketball overall that are capable of making that jump to the league or to the professional level, are there any characteristics that stand out to you that kind of separate them and you can kind of tell like, oh yeah, that's one that's going to go like to the pro level? Is there anything that usually sticks out to you there?
I mean, it's crazy. The guys that I've been around that have gone to the pros, I've been lucky. I've gotten to see Jordan Clarkson. I've gotten to see Phil Pressey, who played in the Celtics for a little bit. Max Strus, who's on the Bulls right now. We got Paul Reed, who's projected to be a first rounder this coming year. Those guys all have one thing in common. They're some of the hardest workers I've been around. Jonathan Williams III, who was at Missouri too. He's on the Wizards now. Like, I mean, it's I know it sounds simple, and I know everybody says it, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And it sounds so simple, but those guys really, really put in work. They really put in work. Obviously, you need a requisite level of talent to be at that level, but those guys, they put in the work. And like, I wish I had like some other answer for you. I really do, because it's just, how many times have you heard that? But still, people aren't willing to do what that top percentage is. It's hard work is a talent. It's a talent.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And just to illustrate that, I mean, if you have any examples, like what, like in your experience being around some of those guys, like what has been like something in terms of work ethic that has really stood out? Like, holy crap, like that's crazy. Like, I don't know anyone else who would do that. Like, is there any of those experiences that stand out in your mind?
Yeah. I mean, just to talk about Paul is one of those guys, Paul Reed, he would drive our managers crazy because he'd be coming in the gym like multiple times a day, hitting guys up at night, like, hey man, like where you at? Like it'd be like his third time in the day getting in the gym, and like you're like, yo, like, hey man, didn't I just rebound for you earlier? Like it's just that relentlessness. It's that relentlessness that you're just so hungry to get better. Like, I mean, I've rebounded for guys at crazy times and stuff like that, and have seen, but it's just the level of consistency and the level of relentlessness that they approach every single day with is what is the most impressive part to me. Because you can just tell guys like that, it eats at them. Like if they're not able to work out that day, they like lose their mind. They can't like handle it,
Yeah, for sure. And building on that, are there any players that made it to that next level that maybe like going into college or coming out of high school, you couldn't really tell like they had that like natural talent or natural athletic ability that kind of were able to put themselves in a position through that insane amount of hard work to make that jump to the next level, who maybe weren't like genetically gifted, so to speak, in terms of athleticism and just raw talent?
I mean, yeah. I mean, the guy that comes to mind for me is Phil Pressey. He was a 5'10", 5'11" point guard, pretty athletic kid. I just think like he was just the consummate pro in that he approached. And, a lot of guys work hard, right? I think it's important to also work smart. He was just very, I felt like when he worked on his game, he was very practical. He knew exactly the game shots that he needed to take. And I think that if you're gonna be somebody that goes somewhere where you're not supposed to be, you need to be doing. You can't like fall out of line, right? Like you need to be doing exactly what you need to do. And so, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
other element of it. Like if you're going to be like somebody like that, you can't just work hard. You also got to work smart. And that's, to me, the guys that make it are the ones that kind of find a good balance between the both.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something that I think most people understand there's a degree of hard work that's required. I mean, not everyone's willing to put it in, but I think at least subconsciously you realize, like, yeah, I'm going to have to grind to make this happen. But I think one of those things that sets people apart, especially the ones that aren't necessarily super like genetically gifted, so to speak, is that like smart work. So I know when I was playing, I spent hours in the gym, but looking back objectively, like knowing what I know now, a lot of those hours pretty low quality, not really game speed, not really super sharp reps that I was getting a lot out of. And I think that a lot of players could benefit from looking at their training like that and like, okay, is this actually going to translate over to what I'm doing in the game? And also, subtle plug, obviously nutrition, very important. If you're going to train that much, be in the gym 2-3 times a day, you better be eating right. So if you're new around here, definitely subscribe because I'm posting stuff all the time about that stuff. But
Hey, Tommy, I actually have a comment about that. Like, it's funny when you say like nutrition, right?
yeah,
When guys get in the league, right? I feel like one of the first things they always say is like, "Oh yeah, I just started eating right," and like, it's like, hey,
yeah,
why is the guys just start eating right when they get in the league,
I
right?
know. I
Like,
know.
it's like why isn't that something they started in college or
Yeah.
or even started in high school? You know,
Yeah.
why is it something that's got to take so long to really understand? I've
Yeah.
never really understood that because like if you're trying to get an edge, I'm trying to exhaust every possible option,
For
and
sure.
nutrition is your fuel. So
Yeah.
like, why is it so many guys are just, oh yeah, I got my body right, I'm eating right. It's like, I've always wondered that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. And obviously like that's what I'm kind of trying to fix to some degree and hopefully help some guys realize earlier on, or at least even earlier on in their pro career. Cause even at the league in the league, I've talked to, I don't know if you know, like Tim DiFrancesco, he's the former Lakers strength and conditioning coach. I interviewed him on the podcast. And he was telling me a story about one of like a rookie in for one of the pregame meals ordered like chicken tenders and fries from the arena to the locker room right before a game. And that stuff still happens. So it's hard to pinpoint exactly why it's happening. I think for a while it's just simply lack of knowledge. Like people really didn't understand the degree to which nutrition could help. But I think now the information is there, the evidence is there. I think now it's a matter of communicating it in a way that makes the player want to do it. Because I think a lot of the communication up until this point has been, oh, eat your vegetables, do this, oh, no more fast food, oh, you can't have any candy. And like it's this idea of like restriction, and it's super like boring to most players. So what I try to do is at least make it somewhat entertaining, make it simple. Like a lot of guys don't realize that the super basic stuff gets you the vast majority of your results. Like you don't need to be super strict. If you even pay attention to it like a little bit, you have an edge because most players aren't paying attention to it at all. So it's an interesting conversation. I think overall, the reason why a lot of players struggle to implement it or haven't been really taking care of their bodies because they haven't really had that wake up call yet, especially the ones that end up making it to the league and maybe do have that natural talent and raw athleticism. They've been able to just perform at that insane level their entire life. And eventually the ones who last ultimately have like that wake up call moment of, damn, I got injured, or damn, why is my knee always bothering me and all achy? Why do I feel like crap all the time? And they kind of realize, oh damn, yeah, I've been eating like crap my entire career. I should probably fix that. But I think the reason why people don't realize it earlier on is just there's kind of a disconnect in the communication of it, to where like it's not really communicated in a way that makes players want to do it. So that's kind of what I try to fix to some extent.
No doubt. No, it's a great mission to be on because I could assure you a lot of guys out there that don't eat great.
I can imagine. I can imagine. What are there any stories that stick out in your mind as far as like things you've seen? You don't have to call out any names, but is there anything that sticks out? You're like, dude, what are you doing? Because I've heard quite a few.
I mean, no, it's more just like a general attitude about food. You know, one of my job one year as a graduate assistant was I was ordering all of our team's meals, which is, by the way,
no way,
one of those jobs where you learn you just can't satisfy everybody.
No.
So you have to learn how to deal with that. And
yeah,
I think just the general attitude towards food in general for just most people. I mean, people just want to eat something that tastes better most of the time. And that's the sad part about nutrition is you can still eat healthy foods and they taste good. Like especially if you learn how to cook. If you learn how to cook, like you don't have to sacrifice taste.
Yeah.
You can learn to make your own food and make it taste good. You can eat fine and it's a win-win. Like, I think that's the thing that to be honest, I wish we could teach our guys how to cook and do all sorts of cool stuff like that. Like I think that would help them tremendously.
Oh yeah. I mean, if a player knows how to cook and knows how to make food that actually tastes good, it's easy. I mean, even the simplest food, like even if you take your basic, like classic chicken, rice, and broccoli, which everyone's like, oh, that's so boring, add some seasoning to it. Just make sure the chicken's not dry and season the broccoli. You can cook broccoli in a billion different ways and you can make it taste very good. And I think you hit it on the head right there. Like they're not healthy and things that taste good, it's not mutually exclusive. I think people get that idea in their head, but if you just understood, like, yeah, I can enjoy my nutrition, I can enjoy my diet, but also still eat foods that are going to fuel me properly. And I think also once players understand that, like, oh, I ate this and I felt really good that day in practice, or I had my best game yet, or I just hit a PR in the gym, or, oh, I'm finally putting on muscle mass because so many hoopers struggle with that. I think when they realize that, then it's a lot easier. So like a lot of what I do in my work with guys is like really try to just overemphasize connecting the dots between like what they ate and what happened on the court or in the gym. But yeah, no, I agree with you for sure. It has to be something you enjoy.
No doubt.
Yeah. Awesome. So now I kind of want to get into the free throw endeavor that you're on and how that came about and dive into that a little bit more. So just give everyone an idea, like what have you been doing this off season as far as like trying to perfect your free throw, and why did that come about?
So why it came about, one of the things that I was trying to go into this off season as a basketball coach, there's so many things that you could learn, right? Like you could learn a million things about just baseline out of bounds sets, right? And or you could learn about defenses and it's overwhelming. Like there's information overload out there. Like there's so many free resources for coaches to grow and learn. And I got inspired by Kobe Bryant when I saw that he would just add one skill to his game every summer, right? So one skill, he tried to get really good at that one skill. And that's kind of how I wanted to approach this offseason. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. One of the reasons why I was inspired to choose free throw shooting was because we were not a good free throw shooting team this year. We were 320th in the country in free throw shooting. And, you know, I'm not saying like I'm going to turn that around or anything, but I want to learn as much as I can about it so that maybe it can help our program in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Or it can be something that is a part of my bag as a coach. You know, I'm the guy that can help a guy make more free throws. I think anybody would want that because at the end of the day, guys want to score more points. And who is going to tell you, no, I don't want to work on my free throw. What, you don't want points? Like, you know, so it's one of those things. So it's been hit or miss throughout the summer as to whether I've had a hoop because of, you know, obviously with everything going on.
For sure.
I've had periods of times where I didn't have a hoop, so I was, more focused on studying. And I've had the last 2 weeks, I've consistently had a hoop to shoot on, which has been great.
Yeah.
And I felt that if I'm going to study it, I should probably do it too, right? How am I going to teach somebody to become a better free throw shooter if I can't teach myself, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to go through that process, and I wanted to share it with people because I wanted people to understand what improvement looks like. Because people think that they're supposed to get results overnight. It's not how it works.
You're telling me.
Improvement takes time, man.
Absolutely.
It might not be very much over a long period of time, but it as long as you keep going in one direction, that's all that matters. So I'm right now I'm obsessed with free throw shooting, and I'm trying to learn as much as I possibly can. I'm reading all sorts of books about it. I'm researching it on the internet, watching film of the best free throw shooters, just devouring it, watching my own film of myself shooting free throws. So I've just really gotten into it. It's become like a morning routine for me. I get up, I go to the court, I shoot free throws. I'm feeling good. I've moved around. It's something that I can, if I because I like to work out in addition to that too. If I don't get a workout in the morning, well, at the very least, I've gotten a little bit of a sweat because went to the court and shot around. It's just been great, man. Like I've really enjoyed it, and a lot of my friends have really enjoyed watching how I've shot. And people, it's funny because people have been perplexed because my results have been like all over the place. Like one day I'll get like 51 out of 100, and then the next day I got like 80, and it's like, oh, this makes no sense. So people are really
like on that. Have you been able to pinpoint like anything that contributes to that besides like the wind being outside sometimes? But like, is there anything mentally or like in your routine or anything like that contributes to the days where you do really like oddly well compared to the days where it's just like, damn, what happened?
Yeah, there's a few factors for sure. I think first and foremost, getting a good night's sleep always helps. Like I think it always helps me shoot better the next day. Just because I'm fresh.
Interesting note on that. There was a study that looked at, I think it was Stanford basketball players in 2011, that they went from 6 to 8 hours of sleep. And I know the 3-point percentage went up by 9.2%. I don't know the exact number for the free throw percentage, but I know that went up. So definitely evidence-based with that one for sure.
Yes. So I think first and foremost, that's very important. 2, I think my shooting form needs some work for sure. I've got a little bit of a hitch in my shot where it's I'll be up here, and even if it's just a split second, I kind of pause a little bit and then go up. Right. So I'm working through that. I know my shot's not super textbook. I don't have like my elbow in it like a perfect like straight line. It's a little out.
Yeah.
I think that you can get by with that. I don't think that that's going to prevent me from becoming a great shooter. I think it's just I got to smoothen up my release so that it's one motion going up. And that's something I've been working on. And, it's funny because like you can see it on film, right? And you can know that. And I'll go into every day and like thinking about it. And like, I'll still be like, I'm still doing that on film. I'm still pausing right there. But I've noticed over the weeks, it's got slowly but surely getting a little smoother. So that's something I'm trying to work through with my shot personally.
Got you. And then is there anything you've learned either through your own experience or through your research that already like that you've learned that you're going to apply like in working with guys, like helping them to get things going in the right direction with the free throw? Is there any tactics or any strategies that you've come across that have actually been effective?
Right. So I think 2 that I think about are 1 is routine. I think having a simple routine where you have max 3 dribbles and it's simple is important because there's a lot of guys, everybody wants to have the Jason Kidd blow a kiss to the hoop or,
the Kevin Durant shimmy.
A little KD like shimmy.
Yeah.
For most guys, you don't need that. You want to make your free throws.
Yeah.
You don't need all that extra stuff because the more time you're up there, the more you're thinking about it, the less of a chance the ball is going to go in the hoop. So
Mm,
that's first and foremost. Second, I think you got to figure out whether you're a guy that squares your feet to the hoop or needs a little bit of a turn.
mm.
This is a big topic in the basketball community right now,
What's your
and
thoughts on that?
for me personally, I've added the turn.
Okay.
I think I need it just because of my physique. Like I don't, it's like physically impossible
Yeah.
for me to really like get my elbow in squared up. For some people, that's not the case, and for a lot of people, that's not the case. But for some people, if you know, I've got kind of like little broad shoulders. Like I'm a little stiff. Like I need to turn a little bit to kind of line myself up to the hoop.
Yeah.
And I think the last one is just your hand placement on the ball, knowing how big your hand is and where it should be on the ball. Those are three things that I think almost instantly, if you can work with somebody to figure out what is your custom package and what works for you, those will help you make more free throws for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you with the whole keeping it simple. Was there a player? I don't know if this was like actually real life or if I'm remembering things from like 2K or something, but they like wrapped the ball around like when they're like about to shoot a free throw. I feel like there was
Yeah,
someone who did that. I
I,
forget
I'm
who it was though.
I'm trying to remember it. I don't know off the top of my head. I know who you're
Yeah.
talking. I do remember
Yeah.
it.
Okay, got you. And then something really interesting, like when I was doing research for the episode, came across the post you made pretty recently talking about like the history of the free throw. So for anyone who might know, I definitely learned something new in that post. Like, how did like walk us through the history, a rough history of the free throw in the game of basketball?
Right. I mean, in the first 30 years of the game, teams had a designated free throw shooter,
Yeah,
which is crazy. It's like in baseball, like having a closer. I almost wonder like would that be cool to like bring back, you know?
yeah,
But yeah, and then eventually they made it so that the person who got fouled is shooting the free throw.
mhm.
Yeah, I mean the free throw. I think to me the thing that fascinates me the most is that if you look at the macro scale of free throw shooting over the course of time in college and the NBA, free throw shooting is percentages have stayed pretty much the same, right? The NBA on average shoots about 75%. Division One men's basketball shoots around 70%. So
Okay,
it's one of those things. Is like, why hasn't that gone up? You know, 3 point shooting has gone up. 3 point
yeah,
shooting has gone up so much so that they had to move the line back in college this
yeah,
year, right? So
yeah,
that's kind of like my mission is like, hey, like hold up, why aren't we making more free throws on as a whole? Why are there still guys that are in the league shooting 40s,
yeah,
guard, wings? There are wings in the league shooting in the 40s, and I'm like, but this is the same shot for everybody, right?
yeah.
Obviously, you're there's a little bit more on the line when you're in the league, and that is you
For
have to
sure.
take that into account. I'm not saying it's like me shoot at the park, but I mean, at the end of the day, a free throw is a shot that you know how it's going to happen, right? It's going to be
Yeah.
the same thing every time. Yet, why haven't we improved on it on a macro level?
Yeah, it's interesting. Have you come across anything? If, obviously, it's a tough question. But have you come across anything like I remember being a Lakers fan that one year like Dwight Howard was on the team, like free throws were an issue, and it's
Right.
like players like that are at that level, like they're getting paid millions upon millions of dollars. People are like, why can't this dude learn how to make a free throw? Like, even
Right.
when
I
they're
mean,
spending time in the gym, is there anything that you come across that could kind of
well,
shed some light on
here's the thing about that. Guys like Dwight Howard, like I already know, they put in a lot of work on their free throws.
that?
For
Absolutely.
guys that size, it's a hard shot. It's not easy. You have such an incredible amount of range of motion that it just statistically proven it's harder for taller players to shoot.
Yeah.
And yeah, but the thing is, I think too, is it's not necessarily always the amount of work you put in on it. It's about how you go about it. I can't
Mm,
speak, and I don't know what it's been like behind the scenes for Dwight. I
yeah.
just know that for guys that size, it's not easy shooting free throws, and you can see. I mean, same Andre Drummond, DeAndre Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain. Like you go down the line, there's been
Yeah.
plenty of big guys that struggle shooting free throws.
Yeah. Absolutely. How about at the guard level and the wing level, guys who don't really have that sort of issue?
Right.
Has anything that stuck out to you was
I
just
mean,
more like a mental thing?
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's. I think it's really just about your approach to it. I just think overall, from observations, I think a lot of players, especially guards, just especially guards because they think they can already shoot. Like a free throw is a different shot, right? I think they just take a casual approach to free throw shooting, and I think you really need to like hone in and like figure out exactly what it is you do that leads to success at the free throw line for you. Like you can't take a casual like shooting in the 70s even like is not good for a guard. Like you gotta like to me like if you're not in the 80s like I just don't get it. Like it's like how are you turning down free points? I
Yeah.
just
Do you know what percentage of points? I remember seeing this number somewhere. It might have even
mhm.
been on your page, or maybe it wasn't. But do you know what percentage of points comes from free throws, like at the college
Yeah.
level?
At Division One, 18% of a team's
Oh,
points come from free throws. So that's about 1 in every 6 points, one in
yeah.
every five. Like that's a lot. And yeah, like maybe you'll shoot a few at the end, but like if you don't know that you're gonna take a right-handed layup in this game. You don't know that you're gonna get a three-pointer on the left wing. But if
Yeah.
if you're a player that gets to the line a decent amount, you know that you're going to shoot free throws.
Yeah.
So how is it that there's not more 90% shooters out there? How is it that there's not more 80% shooters out there? I get it though. It's boring. It's not flashy. It's not
Yeah.
something that looks good. Oh wow, hey man, he just hit that. That free throw looked great, man. Like nobody ever says that. Nobody
Yeah.
ever
I mean,
says
maybe in
that,
the last like five
right?
seconds of the game, but like other than that,
Right? The culture of basketball right now is about the moves. And don't get me wrong, those are important too. However, I just think free throws need a little bit more attention.
oh yeah, I 100% agree with you. Now, if let's say things hypothetically were to go back to the one free throw shooter per team, if you're coaching a team like and you could pick any player, who's your guy?
Ooh, that's a great question. I mean, shoot, the guy that pops into my mind right away is Jose Calderon. He was
Really?
just, I mean, yeah, he's got the single season record, I believe, for free throw shooting. He shot like 98% in the season one time. Like that would be the guy. Like,
Yeah.
and it's simple because like it's not. There's no debate. You just look at the numbers. you just got to look at the numbers. And no. Oh yeah, like that guy's form. Nah, man. Like it's strictly results driven. There's no
Yeah.
gray area about this. This is strictly black and white. Do you make shots or do you not make shots?
Yeah. Nah, I love it, man. Well, dude, this was a great conversation as we're kind of getting towards the tail end of it. A question I like to ask at the end of most of the podcast is like, if you had to give one piece of advice to an athlete, like high school, maybe younger college guy, whether it be on the court, off the court, you take this really wherever you want. What would that piece of advice be?
My piece of advice would be to figure out what is your biggest strength. What is your ace? What is it that you do the best? What makes you different than everyone else? How do you provide value for your team? A lot
Yeah,
of guys just don't do that, right? They're working on their overall game, and that's important.
for sure.
Don't get it twisted. You got to know what it is you do well, and you got to really hone in on that skill. So whether that's being a 3-point shooter, whether that's being an elite defender, you got to figure out what it is that makes you different and gives you value. And I think that's where a lot of guys get lost.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you got to be a specialist. I'm just saying you got to realize what it is that forces the coach to have you in the game. You got to have that self-awareness. If you don't have that self-awareness, you're never going to make it, because there's too many guys out there that want to play, and there's too many guys out there that want it just as bad as you do. You got to know what it is that you do well, and you got to stay in that lane. And guess what? You can still work on those other aspects of your game. Just make sure that your ace, whatever that is, you got it and it's ready to go when it comes to the season.
yeah.
When the season comes, you got to have that skill ready. Oh, I know I can make 10 threes in a row, right? Oh, or no, I know I've locked up everybody I've guarded this summer. Stuff like that. You got to know what your ace is.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you there. And that's something definitely looking back at my career, I wish I understood earlier. Because, I mean, I think a lot of players get caught up because, again, like the culture of the game right now is a lot based on the highlights you see, and especially with social media and then, like, the mixtapes. I mean, mixtapes been around for a while, but, like, especially like now it's becoming like everyone wants to do those moves and be that type of player. But there's so many other opportunities. You don't even have to score that like that. You can be, like you said, a defensive stopper. You can be the best rebounder on the team. You could talk the most, communicate the best. Like, there's so many ways
right
to make an impact on the game. So 100%
no doubt.
agree with you there.
We talk about this a lot as a team. I think Billy Donovan, coach of the Thunder, said this once. Yeah. I think it's been calculated that in a game, players have the ball only about 5% of the time, maybe, give or take a few percentage points, obviously.
For sure.
So there's a lot more of the game that you need to know how to do, like you're not going to have the ball in your hands all that much. Let's be honest. Yeah. So you're going to have to learn how to do a lot of other stuff, and you're not always going to be that guy. So if you're putting in all your time on this move and that move, and that's important too, but just know that might be only 5% of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that really puts it into perspective. But, like, dude, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I learned a ton, and everyone else watching learned a ton. This it'll be up on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, obviously you figured it out. But it'll be up on YouTube in video form. So if you're listening on podcasts or on audio, you can watch the video version if you'd like on YouTube. Just look up T. Clark Nutrition. The channel will probably pop up. If not, just message me and I'll send the link to you directly. Or actually, it'll be linked in the show notes below. So you can just click that link and it'll take you over here. And then if you're watching right now, I appreciate you guys tuning in. And then if you're new around here, like I said, I'm posting nutrition videos for basketball players specifically 3 times a week. Got the podcast going 3 times a week. Got Instagram going, I think 3 times a day at this point. So tons of free content for you guys. Would appreciate it if you guys subscribe, drop a like on the video if you enjoy it, of course. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. Lucas, I appreciate your time. Like I said, I learned a ton. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm excited for everyone to hear it and see it. Oh, also, I almost forgot. Where can everyone find you?
You can follow me on all social networks at Coach Lou, L and 3 U's. That's where you can find me. And you can, if you could also, we're accepting members of the bandwagons at DePaul Hoops. We're
awesome.
Not sure when the season's going to start this year, but hey, everyone is welcome.
Love it. Go follow Lou for sure. Tons of valuable content. I mean, like I said, whenever I learn a ton in a podcast, I know it's a great one. So definitely follow Lucas for any other content. And then I'll link all the social accounts you mentioned in the description and the show notes. So it should be pretty easy to find. And like I said, I appreciate y'all tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode, and I will see you next time.